So let me then direct my questions to the President of RCBC. Mr. Tan, is it not standard practice of your bank to verify the identity of an account holder when they open an account?
Mr. Chairman, can I start with my opening statement?
Okay then, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Chairperson Chufisto Guingona III, Honorable Vice Chairperson Sergio Osmeña III, Honorable members of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, Honorable Senators and distinguished guests, good afternoon. I am Lorenzo Tan, the current President and Chief Executive Officer of Rizal Banking Corporation, or RCBC. I am here with RCBC's attorney, Lorinda Rojero, pursuant to this Honorable Committee's invitation, ready and willing to assist in this legislative investigation into the alleged 100 million US that was allegedly laundered in the Philippines. At the outset, on behalf of the bank, I would like to express our gratitude to this Honorable Committee for granting us the opportunity to assist in this laudable and much-needed endeavor to strengthen our country's laws against money laundering, a concern shared not just by RCBC, but all banking and financial institutions. As this Honorable Committee is surely aware, the Philippines is one of the few remaining countries that has chosen to retain the laws imposing the strict confidentiality of bank accounts, deposits, and investments. Though these bank secrecy laws provide obstacles to the free sharing of information at this hearing, which information may actually enlighten everyone on what truly transpired, my colleague and I will extend our fullest cooperation and within legal boundaries will do our best to provide this Honorable Committee with the answers it needs to achieve the purpose of this legislative inquiry. Having said that, on behalf of the bank, we vehemently deny and disavow any and all knowledge, complicity, or participation in the alleged money laundering of 100 million US dollars in the Philippines. I beg this Honorable Committee's indulgence and ask that we be allowed to take this opportunity to explain the bank's and my positions as follows. First, RCBC has always been and continues to be cognizant of the significant public interest that underlies its business and services. The bank views this country's laws and policies against money laundering as a defining and sacred part of the bank's corporate policies and governance culture. Thus, the bank has put in place systems, measures, and policies that ensure and monitor compliance and consistency with prevailing laws and applicable rules and regulations of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, including those necessary to curb money laundering. Among others, the bank has a board-approved and updated money laundering prevention program manual, has a department dedicated to anti-money laundering matters, and has an anti-money laundering committee composed of no less than its senior group and committee heads, and has, from 2011 to 2015, doubled its compliance complement to strengthen its AML department, testing, and monitoring units. Second, fully aware of the fiduciary relationship between the bank and its clients, the bank demands and obtains strict compliance by its management, officers, and employees with all the applicable laws and rules governing the banking industry. The bank is currently conducting its own investigation regarding the subject matter of this inquiry. We assure this Honorable Committee and the public that should any deviation from the bank's policies and procedures be uncovered, or should any employee or officer be found to have participated in any anomalous or unlawful transaction, the bank shall hold the erring individuals accountable and mete out the penalties they deserve. Third, I am aware that questions have been raised, especially as to the bank's alleged acceptance of an inordinately substantial amount of money and its alleged refusal to freeze the same. Although the bank and its officers are precluded by various bank secrecy laws from discussing the specifics relating to those questions, we would like to clarify a few points. 1. An inward remittance to a client's account within the bank is processed under a straight-through process of the SWIFT system, an international payment network that is fully automated from end to end. International remittances under accurate SWIFT instructions are credited to the beneficiaries' accounts without need of any manual intervention. This SWIFT system, which is used by the majority of financial institutions all over the world, including the central banks of various countries, has resulted in a faster and more efficient means of payments. But because of its full automation, the system precludes a manual rejection of remittances. 2. As a matter of best global practice in the banking world, inward remittances of foreign funds to big local banks such as RCBC come from internationally prestigious correspondent banks with which the local bank has had long-standing relationships over the years. 3. Under Philippine law, deposits are withdrawable at will, and our existing legal framework prevents banks and even the AMLC and the BSP from freezing monies in a client's account without a court order. It is a matter of strict policy of our bank to comply on a timely basis with the reporting requirements prescribed by Philippine regulations. 5. We have faithfully complied with the freeze order contained in the resolution of the Court of Appeals since we received it on March 1, 2016. We have been cooperating and will continue to cooperate with the regulators concerned to the maximum extent allowed by our legal framework to help them to get to the bottom of this alleged money laundering. 7. While we at RCBC believe that we have put in place sufficient systems and processes to avoid money laundering, we are determined to adopt measures to strengthen them if our investigation will reveal that there are weaknesses along the way. The bank is the 5th largest in the Philippines and continues to grow. It is set to open 50 or so new branches this year to service the banking needs of more people. This controversy does not relate to the bank's financial stability, and we trust that the attempts to misdirect the inquiry and confuse the public will not succeed. I would like to briefly digress and discuss the allegations made against me by one of the bank's branch managers, Ms. Maia Santos de Guito. These allegations are baseless and malicious. To set the record straight, I do not personally know Ms. de Guito and have neither nor had maintained any relationship or direct dealing with her. More importantly, I have no personal knowledge of, much less personal participation in any of the transactions that are subject of this inquiry. It may interest this honorable committee to know that RCBC processes in excess of 2 million transactions per month with an average monthly peso value of approximately 1 trillion pesos. These transactions are not known to me, and these do not and would not have had to be approved by me, even as Chief Executive Officer and President, because to impose such a requirement would slow down the process that needs to be expeditious and efficient. I am aware that in an interview given after she attempted to flee the country, Ms. de Guito recanted and clarified that she merely assumed that I was aware of the matters allegedly transpiring at her branch. As Chief Executive Officer and President of RCBC, a universal bank with 472 branches and over 6,600 employees, such an assumption is absolutely unreasonable. Having been employed as a branch manager of local banks before joining RCBC, Ms. de Guito would have known better than to make such assumptions. In fact, in the same radio interview, Ms. de Guito categorically stated that she was not accusing me of having any knowledge of the transactions, subject of the present inquiry. That is the cold, hard truth, Your Honors. In fact, when I first learned of the incident in question, I immediately ordered that an audit be conducted on the matter. In my almost 3 decades in the banking industry, my reputation has remained untarnished. It is unfortunate that I'm now being baselessly and maliciously attacked regarding this controversy. I trust that this honorable committee's investigation will uncover the truth. To end, we at RCBC understand that this honorable committee has a challenging task. The task to investigate the controversy, to uncover where and how money was laundered, to ascertain whether loopholes in the Philippines' anti-money laundering legal regime exist, and to come up with legislative measures to plug these holes. We fully support and commit our utmost assistance to this honorable committee's endeavors at crafting new legislation or perhaps prescribing new policy regulation. It is my sincere hope, and that of the bank as well, that this honorable committee's daunting task will be completed and give rise to the passage of much-needed reforms. Having been president of the Bankers Association for the past 3 years, I am certain that an enhancement of the Philippines' anti-money laundering legal and policy environment will surely elevate the standing of our nation in the region and entire international financial community, and ultimately benefit the Filipino people. Once again, we thank this honorable committee for this opportunity to take part in these proceedings.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the first question. When accounts are opened in your bank, Mr. Tan, in accordance with the principle of know your customers, is it not incumbent upon the bank to verify what the true identity of the accounts, the account holders, especially when they open the accounts?
Yes, Your Honor. We are required to know the address, the source of income. We are required to get valid government IDs from these depositors. And we are required to determine the validity of these IDs.
So would you be able to explain as to why there was a failure in this procedure on this instance?
I apologize, Your Honor. I cannot talk specifically about this case because of bank secrecy, but I assure you that an investigation is going on in our bank to determine the actual facts that happened.
No, but what I'm saying is you cannot invoke bank secrecy here because the account holder is the real owner of the funds, is not invoking bank secrecy.
I was advised by counsel, Your Honor, to refrain from talking about bank accounts and specific transactions. I apologize. I understand there was an actual case where a foreign bank was sued for discussing bank accounts in a hearing like this.
Mr. Tan, I'm just asking about your bank procedure. I'm not asking about an account.
Okay.
What are you...
May I pass you on to our committee?
No, you answer it, Mr. Tan. You're the president.
I already described the procedure, Your Honor.
My question is it not incumbent upon your bank? So you cannot answer in this case, in this instance.
We have an anti-money laundering policy approved by the board. We have a framework in place where transactions are tagged as covered, and out of those transactions,
my question, sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but my question lang is, in this case, could you explain, yes or no, why there was a failure of this procedure?
I apologize, Your Honor. I cannot talk specifically about these accounts because of bank secrecy laws.
Again, all I'm talking about is procedure, not the account.
As I mentioned earlier, Your Honor, we have the responsibility to identify the validity of these government IDs that are presented by the depositor.
Ms. Guito, one of the procedures of checks and balances when a customer opens an account is that the bank sends thank you letters. In other words, thank you for opening an account. And that is a check and balance because if it is received, then at least you know the address is correct. Pag bumalik yung, if the thank you letter goes back, because then you know there's something wrong with the address and therefore that's a red flag. Mr. Guito, did you observe this procedure?
Yes, sir. It's an automatic in the bank. It's computer generated. It's not controlled by the branch. And I believe thank you letters were sent and no notification of return for that.
Okay, but I'm just wondering then why the addressees, when we looked for the address, they were fictitious address. Therefore, could you produce the thank you letters?
I'm sorry, sir.
Could you produce the thank you letters?
It was sent through to the clients already po. Hindi po siya dumadaan.
Hindi bumalik?
Hindi po.
Hindi bumalik. Okay. Now, let's talk about the stop payment order. Okay. The funds from New York came in on February 5. Okay? That was a Friday. There was withdrawals, and then on February 8, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York sent stop payment requests. That was February 8. That was a holiday. It was a Chinese New Year. It came in at 5 p.m. The next day, February 9, was a banking day. That was a Tuesday. 81 million was still there in the accounts. And on February 9, all the 81 million was withdrawn. Did you not have a stop payment request, Ms. Guito, on February 9?
Sir, I apologize, but questions related to the transactions, I will just answer that in an executive session. I'm invoking my right to be silent about it.
Yes. I was going to say, please make your invocation. Attorney, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry po.
So what are you invoking?
Right against self-incrimination.
I'm invoking my right to self-incrimination.
Again, self-incrimination.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Tan. Mr. Tan.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tan, stop payment order was received by your bank September 8. In the morning of February 8, 2016. On the morning of February 9, first banking day, dapat nakita nyo na yung stop payment request. But apparently, it was not honored because the funds were withdrawn. All the funds were withdrawn. There is, in the pleadings, in the documents, it says here that RCBC responded to the Bank of Bangladesh stop payment request at 7:45 p.m. on February 9. So that's the end of the day already, that's 7:45. Could you care to explain why the stop payment request, which should have been honored at the very start of the banking day, was not honored?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. I cannot confirm or deny this request specific to this transaction, but as a general rule, when there's a freeze order on an account, the branch manager involved should comply with such order.
Did you send it to your branch manager?
Again, Your Honor, I'm precluded because of bank secrecy. But, you know, as a general policy of the bank, these orders are sent by head office to the branch.
I cannot agree with your invocation of bank secrecy. As again I said, the one that can invoke secrecy is the owner of the funds. The owner of the funds is the Central Bank of Bangladesh, and they're here precisely to ask us to help them recover the funds. They are not invoking secrecy.
I beg your indulgence, Your Honor. I understand your frustration, but the legal advice is, you know, there must be a legal determination as to who
Mr.
owns
Tan,
this fund.
Mr. Tan,
Yes, sir.
you know, if you honor that stop payment order request on February 9, according to the records I have, 58 million, or more than one half of the funds, would not have been released. Is there, what then conclusion can the public have? They're watching right now.
Maybe the
Not maybe. This is factual. I'm citing facts. This is not speculative. I'm asking you to answer. This is not a secret. The newspapers have been talking about it. Everybody's been talking about it. A foreign government has asked our assistance, has asked our central bank to assist them.
I understand your frustration, Your Honor. Maybe the investigative body, the AMLC, would be in a better position to discuss the facts, but again, I'm precluded from discussing details of the transaction. RCBC has always been and continues to be cognizant of the significant public interest that underlies its business and services. The bank views this country's laws and policies against money laundering as a defining and sacred part of the bank's corporate policies and governance culture. Thus, the bank has put in place systems, measures, and policies that ensure and monitor compliance and consistency with prevailing laws and applicable rules and regulations of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, including those necessary to curb money laundering. Among other honorable members of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, honorable senators and distinguished guests, good afternoon. I am Lorenzo Tan, the current President and Chief Executive Officer of Rizal Banking Corporation, or RCBC. I am here with RCBC's attorney, Lorinda Rojero, pursuant to this honorable committee's invitation, ready and willing to assist in this legislative investigation into the alleged 100 million US that was allegedly laundered in the Philippines. At the outset, on behalf of the bank, I would like to express our gratitude to this honorable committee for granting us the opportunity to assist in this laudable and much-needed endeavor to strengthen our country's laws against money laundering, a concern shared not just by RCBC, but all banking and financial institutions. As this honorable committee is surely aware, the Philippines is one of the few remaining countries that has chosen to retain the laws imposing the strict confidentiality of bank accounts, deposits, and investments. Though these bank secrecy laws provide obstacles to the free sharing of information at this hearing, which information may actually enlighten everyone on what truly transpired, my colleague and I will extend our fullest cooperation and within legal boundaries will do our best to provide this honorable committee with the answers it needs to achieve the purpose of this legislative inquiry. Having said that, on behalf of the bank, we vehemently deny and disavow any and all knowledge, complicity, or participation in the alleged money laundering of 100 million US dollars in the Philippines. I beg this honorable committee's indulgence and ask that we be allowed to take this opportunity to explain the bank's and my positions as follows. First,
So let me then direct my questions to the President of RCBC. Mr. Tan, is it not standard practice of your bank to verify the identity of an account holder when they open an account?
Mr. Chairman, can I start with my opening statement?
Okay then, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Chairperson Chufisto Guingona III, Honorable Vice Chairperson Sergio Osmeña III,